Welcome, welcome, everybody. It is Webinar Wednesday, or actually it's Thursday today, but it doesn't really matter. It's still webinar time. I'm Leanne Johnston, your host, and joining me today, which I'll get to in just a minute, are my two lovely guests who are up on the screen. But if you're joining us live, remember the rules. Stay until the end and you get to ask questions, and you can do that on our YouTube channel. So if you are joining us live on LinkedIn, guys, it's great. You'll still be able to watch the entire show. You'll be able to interact with us. But if you want to ask these wonderful guests of mine questions, you'll need to head on over to the YouTube chat on our YouTube channel at Affiverse, and we'll be interacting with you there on that chat today. So without any further ado, let's get this show started. A little bit of housekeeping if you're joining us, if this is the first time that you're joining our webinar series. If we freeze, if we go a bit funny on your screen, all you need to do is press refresh in your browser and we'll come straight back to you. We're going to be discussing today AI discoverability and the future of brand awareness, which I think is such a hot topic everybody is talking about right now. And I've got two of the best guests that I could ever have asked for to talk through this subject with you all today. Our time together is short, so we'll try and make the most of this and get it practical for you guys. So remember, if you're joining us on LinkedIn, you can watch the entire show, but if you want to ask questions and you want to participate, get on over to the YouTube chat. So without any further ado, I'm going to invite the first guest on my screen, which is Michael Cole from Everflow. Michael, it is a pleasure to have you on this webinar with me again. I think you've been on a couple of webinars and podcasts with me already, so it's a pleasure to have you back. Tell everybody a little bit about Everflow, what you do, and then we'll get on to our next guest and then get the conversation started. So over to you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me as well. So I'm Michael Cole. I'm the head of marketing at Everflow. We're a partner marketing platform doing tracking and attribution for all things affiliate and partnerships. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I think this will be a really fun conversation, and it's really important in terms of where affiliate marketing is heading, because this is something that you're already doing by building all of these affiliate partnerships that has a direct impact on the growth of the brands and clients you're managing. And I think that understanding how to position this to tell a story of how affiliate impacts AI, which impacts growth, is really powerful. And I'm really excited to have Ewan here. On our own, we use Ewan's agency for ourselves with our own LLM discovery. And half of our calls are just sort of like a back and forth conversation about what's working, why it's working, why this is all exciting. So it's fun to be able to share some of this sort of behind the curtains look at what we talk about anyway.
Yeah. So Ewan, tell us a little bit about your agency and what you do and how you landed on this webinar with us today.
Yeah, well, to give a little bit of context, I kind of come at it from a different angle as a publisher. So I have over a decade in the publishing world. Venture Forth Media was the horse I rode in on up until a couple of years ago when we saw some big Google shifts. We started to see Reddit popping up very prominently in Google search. And so we were kind of struggling. What do we do with this? Our traffic was heading down. We were losing a lot of our kind of niche editorial positions. And for context, we have over 100 different blogs in all sorts of random verticals. And so we had a very good sample size of the wave that was crashing. Like we could see it crashing across multiple verticals at the very same time. And so we were kind of got punched right in the face, which in hindsight allowed us to react in a timely fashion. One thing led to another. We started Red Visible, which was kind of one of the first Reddit marketing agencies as a dedicated offering to really help brands first just manage their reputation, because it was such a prominent Google placement. Joey323, was saying this brand's a scam, and a lot of brands are like, well, what do we do about that? It's from 3 years ago. Like, how do we get active on? Because oftentimes it was just they need to have a presence. They need to have a plan and to displace some of this old stuff that isn't even relevant anymore. So that kind of grew very quickly. That was about a little over a year ago, year and a half ago. And then really in the last 8 months, we added another kind of umbrella offering called Scale Visible. And that really, the North Star there is AI. We started to see our Reddit threads getting picked up. But we also started to see our media properties, 100 plus data points getting picked up. Some of them are even de-indexed by Google. The old sets, they're getting cited in ChatGPT. And
Yeah.
so we're like, wow, this is new. Even though traffic is still down, we're influencing purchasing decisions with the collateral that we've built. And similarly with YouTube and a lot of our video channels, we kind of have this three-legged stool, as I like to call it: Reddit, YouTube, and blog editorial, niche editorial. And all of a sudden, I went from thinking this is the end of media, like we're headed down, to this is actually a great position to be in to help brands to intermediate directly to get them visible in AI search. And so that's really our primary concern. I would say Reddit is still like the sizzle because it's a hard place to market. And so we still get brands that come to us for very specific sets of problems there. But what we think of our unique advantage is that we're like a hybrid media company agency. We have not only the tactics and the capabilities, but we have the sources as well in-house. And we're also building partnerships with other publishers so that we can kind of give them an economic model and provide brands with the context they desperately need to show up in the user journeys that are shifting rapidly in AI.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a lot to unpick there. So I think we have to have a podcast just with me and you in future. But let's start off with the first question, because today we're talking about AI discoverability and the future of how you actually manage and curate your brand awareness online. And without there being a central funnel that people come in to find your brand anymore, we kind of need to be aware of this and we need to be educating ourselves about it. So let's start with the basics for everybody listening and tuning in with us. When we talk about AI, like, ChatGPT, everybody thinks it's only ChatGPT, but it's not. Many of us just see the answers that it provides. We're not actually thinking about the content that our affiliate partners create, the blog reviews, the forum discussions, and how that actually gets used to teach AI models and influence, the brands that those AI models are talking about. So can we start there with kind of giving the audience the bigger picture? And Michael, I'll come to you, and then obviously you, and please feel free to kind of add in.
Sure, yeah. We probably 5 months ago or so sort of reworked a lot of our thoughts and strategy about how we were going to grow Everflow. And the reason we did that was I started using this tool called PromptWatch, which I mention again and again just because it's a free trial and it's super easy to set up. So it's a really good starting place to understand what we're talking about. And I recommend, no matter what your role is, it's good for you to understand exactly this, and it's very quick to do it. Yeah. But what it does is it lets you see sort of okay, for these 10 prompts, what was the response from all of the different LLMs? So here's a response from ChatGPT, here's a response from Gemini, here's a response from the different Claude solutions, etc. And you can sort of see how it responds each time to the people that were asking the question. But more importantly, you can see how it generated that response. And the way it generates the response is citations. So it'll basically be let me reference these 10 publisher places or YouTube or Reddit, etc. Take all of those sources and then give a response. And so once I saw that, I realized oh, wow, this is something we can influence very easily, because again, if they're citing publishers that don't mention Everflow, then we're not going to be mentioned by ChatGPT. If they're citing sources that are unfavorable to us, then that's the response that's going to come up in ChatGPT. So that's where our journey started here, and sort of why we have changed a lot of our strategies, because once you understand citations and you understand that citations are basically affiliate publishers, it really switches up how you think about it. So again, I'm sure Ewan has a lot more to say as the publisher in the situation most of the time of what this leads to.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, kind of one of the big light bulb moments was this idea, because I think there's a lot of debate about SEO versus GEO, and how is it different? And SEOs are it's the same thing, and the GEOs are it's completely different. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But one thing characteristic that I would call out is that it's really consensus building. And we've gone from a model where, think about the old model in Google, you would search for best running shoes, and then you would open probably 9 or 10 tabs if you were like me, read all the articles, go to all the editorial sites. And that facilitated kind of a cornucopia of publishers and long tails, and it was kind of the golden age, right, for I think SEO driven publishers. But now what we're seeing with AI is that you're pulling the web in. This is your chat interface. It's kind of like the clicking cursor, here's your generated response based on your prompt. And to Michael's point, it's pulling in these citations, it's pulling in, and it's scrunching it down into a digestible answer. And sometimes it's still leveraging SEO in the sense that it's running these search operators. Maybe it's 7 or 8, and then it's modifying them, and then it's synthesizing them in different ways. But really, this idea that ranking versus being cited, they're two different things. It feels similar, but it's two completely different things. And one kind of eye-opening moment for me was that discovering that only like 10 to 12% of the rankings on the first page of Google are cited in ChatGPT for a similar query. So there's a huge divergence. And so that's where the reductive like SEO versus GEO falls down is on the impact. Like, yes, some of the SEO work you're doing is probably going to help AEO or GEO, whatever you want to call it, but it's not going to be, it's going to be a kind of a, not an imperfect effort. And so what we've really learned and started to see, like Michael was talking about, those actual citations, and sometimes a video or an article is being cited in 17, 20, 30 different places in all these different journeys at different stages of the funnel. It's infinitely complex. It's like in the long tail just got incredibly longer. And there's just at the time when OpenAI and Google have disincentivized publishers from creating net new original content. And so there's a huge problem. And that's kind of one of the things that we're seeing and we're trying to solve as a publisher and as an agency.
So this opens up a big question, because why does this matter, right? For affiliate managers, brands that are tuning into this webinar, we've always been focused on clicks and conversions, right? But now we need to take a step back, and we actually need to look at the strategy of what partners we're bringing into the program and at what time. You know, are you looking at this from the beginning of your affiliate program? Are you looking at it as a more mature affiliate program manager? Because when is the right time to actually start investing in this? Is it now because early adopters are going to get in, or is it, you know, do you hang back a little bit and just start to maybe diversify your budget away from SEO pure affiliates and start looking at more long tail content publishers? So what's the kind of word on the street, as I'd like to say? What would be the advice right now, based on the fact that this is happening? It does have an impact, but what do you do strategically?
It's a great question. Michael, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I think that this is something that basically anyone in affiliate marketing should be looking at right away. And the reason for this is, again, like, it's not really about like, oh, grand strategy. Am I going to go long tail? Am I going to go recruit all this stuff? Like, that stuff is nice, but that's more work for you. Yeah. I think the main thing that's like why this is the most important for everyone in affiliate marketing to know about is that it's like, you've already built, by the time you have a program launch and you have like your first like 20, 30 affiliates live, you've already built your first partnerships that are places mentioning you, getting into all of the like major review websites, getting all the like major affiliate publications. Like, that has always been the strategy. And the first step here is like the stuff you've already done. Now it's time to be like, hey, it turns out these things are being cited here. Like, it's understanding this and then bringing it to your marketing leadership to be like, hey, we're already being cited here. This is pretty interesting. This is the new AI buzzy thing we all want to be a part of. It's good for our own marketing story, something that we can go to the CEO and tell them about. And as an affiliate manager, like, really what you're looking for is like, hey, like, the first step for us to actually do this is for us to have more resources to do it, whether that's internal support, whether that's agency support, etc. But if you can start saying how you're already impacting sort of AI search by working with the publishers you already have, like, I think that is like such a great spot. And that's why there's a lot of affiliate marketing that takes time and effort, because partnerships and publications takes a lot of work. But what's more important is that you have a really good story right now to get the resources so that 6 months, 12 months down the line, you are not only taking advantage of it, but you also have like a team that is really benefiting from this immediate uptick of like this gold rush period.
Well, the thing as well is, you know, you've never really been able to accurately, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, you can track brand awareness through ad spend and sales and everything else, but you've never really been able to directly correlate the impact of brand awareness to, does your affiliate program actually implement that? Because brand awareness does eventually lead to more sales. And we know this from marketing strategies. But now you have the opportunity, because if you can track all of these affiliates that are getting citations into AI search and then eventually bringing customers to your door, that is a game changer, I think.
I would agree. And I think part of it's like building a different model a little bit to measure and assess, whether it's using third-party tools or building your in-house measurement, whatever, like brand score, like whatever thing it is. I think that's one of the gaps I would say in the market right now, is not having quantifiable data around citations and connecting the dots, because what Michael said is 100% true. I always look at affiliates, like the relationships are all there. You think about a major publisher on one side, they have all the connections with the brands already, and then the affiliate managers. On the flip side, some of these agencies or these platforms, they have all the right connections, but it's about changing the context and kind of changing, like zooming out a little bit to be like, hey, this is actually a non-negotiable now. It went from being like, oh, a brand equity, nice to have, to like, actually, this might be the primary way people are discovering, which may be zero click or low click. And that's so it's gone from, nice to have to like a core essential thing that we have to all figure out together. So yeah, I think and one thing we usually talk to brands about, there's like, and we were talking about this a little bit before, but some brands are like all in. They're like, I want to be early. This is early stage. It's like 2003 Google. I don't want to miss the bus. Like, let's just go all in. I don't care about tracking everything, but like we want to go big. And so that's great. Those are great clients. And often those clients are okay, but it's going to take some time still, and you got to slow it down a little bit. Then there's the other clients on the flip side, which is like, well, I can't measure it. The clicks, it doesn't, because I can't justify the dollars and cents to my whatever C-suite. And I'm like, yeah, that's tough. The kind of the middle point for some of those brands that are maybe closer to that spectrum or in the middle, I would say, is like, what's your insurance policy? What is the minimum amount of investment you can make to at least have this muscle flexed and exercising, so that when the thing does shift, when all of a sudden we're living in a whole new world, you're not caught flat-footed without trying to catch up. Because we look back at the early days of Google, there were entire brands that were broken or made in that early period because of how they adapted, right? And I think it's like there's a hype machine, which we've got to be careful about, but there's also there's a being late to the game. And I always think of it, what's the insurance policy? A fraction of your paid spend or a fraction of whatever else you're spending. Like, how can we get it going at least?
The other thing as well is that this is going to, I think, from my perspective, be more important for brands that are targeting younger audiences, because people my age still go to Google, and I'm not going to say what my age is, but we still go to Google to search because we grew up with that. If I look at my son, who's a Gen Alpha, he doesn't ever go to Google, and he doesn't like what Google says to him because he tells me Google lies, because you can manipulate the search results. So he will trust the random musings of what AI tells him. Then he'll go research whether that's correct. Then he's going to all of these millions of touch points before he decides what product, what sneakers he wants, what headphones he wants for Christmas, birthdays, etc. So I think different types of businesses are going to need to like really get in early on this and kind of cement that younger target audience that is relying on and investing in and using AI all the time to get that repeat brand awareness. Because what's the stats? I think it's something like you have to see a brand 6 to 8 times before you actually like remember them or something. So if you can find a way to incentivize your partners to actually get you into those spaces on a performance basis, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Like, take 5% of your budget this quarter and go and invest it in this and see what happens and try and measure it as best you can. Look at the incrementality.
And I would say one of our axioms is fire bullets and then cannonballs. How do you find the target? Just find the target. You don't have to go all in, but just know that you have the muscle that works. You hit the target every time, so that when you do need to go big, you're not, again, flat-footed. You're ready, and you can go big and not be behind the curve.
Okay.
Yeah, I think also, like, a lot of this reality is already here. I think Affiliate Summit just released a new AI report, and it was something like, of the people surveyed, like 74% of them were like regularly using an LLM to sort of get answers. So whether that's ChatGPT, et cetera. And it was a pretty big like age mix, like split, where it was not even like, it was not young oriented. It was pretty spread. The only thing that was interesting was that it was definitely way more men than women. But my feeling is that part of the reason that it's more men than women is just like, it's pretty bad at any like, there's anything that's like an aesthetic search, it's still pretty bad at. It doesn't understand like style requirements. So I think if the technology gets better on that side, where it's giving answers for how do I find like non-tapered jeans, as well as it is for like how do I find a complicated computer part, that will probably be a big shift. So I think that's interesting. But one other thing to go back is like, I think it's also important just to not overcomplicate this. Like, I think basically anyone today can look up any of these like prompt monitoring tools and just go like, okay, who are my affiliates right now that are clearly on more of the content publication side? Let me just search their name here and see if they're in my citations. And that's something you can immediately report on without doing any strategy. And then once you report on that, then you have the sort of like ability to sort of like say like, hey, can I devote 5% of my time to this and go there? So I think that there's an easy win there. And the reality is that there's already like such market reach by being on ChatGPT that like, it's a good time to be incorporating this into like what you're already doing without doing extra work to start.
So I want to come on to authenticity as well, because that's like a really important question, because what we're not telling people to do is go and game the system. What we're telling them to do is go and look at what's happening and how the change is taking place and be an early adopter. So how do we do this like authentically without kind of replicating what happened in Google in the early days, where people just started like bashing out content and, you know, building networks and all the things that they needed to do in order to get rankings?
Well, I guess I could take that one. So yeah, I think it's always been, and I've been in SEO since, you know, for the last decade. So I've seen, I mean, I got started Panda Penguin, like, you know, all those tactics back then. And I think part of it is yes, like, you know, we have our own standards that we kind of abide by. We like to get product out. They still use our same editorial standards as a media company, you know, testing the products, you know, creating firsthand experiences, sharing experiences, kind of in more of like an influencer marketing style. But I will say it's also about the incentive structure that these big tech companies are creating, right? And so they've kind of, if you think about the ethics, not to get on my soapbox here, but like they scraped the entire web, right? And they've used it to build their business. And so the thing that I'll stand on principle on is that it's time for the little people to fight back. and we have power. The long tail niche blogs have power, but we don't have a licensing deal, right? Like the New York Times has with ChatGPT or Reddit has, whatever. So we do need to take the power back into our own hands. And I think affiliate agencies, platforms can be a big part of that story, just like it was for SEO, those long tail publishers that you developed that drove, they were hidden gems, you know, and I think we can figure it out. And so I think we're trying to figure out what is the economic model and then what are the ethics, you know, around, you know, I think one word is called data poisoning, right? When you're trying to like, and they're on the extreme end, you have folks that are creating AI content, like mass generated AI content in YouTube or Reddit or on blogs to then feed it back to the AI engine, which becomes a reductive hot mess. It's not even effective right now. It's called the sugar diet. You see a huge spike and then it kind of tapers and then slow decline over time. So it's not even. Sorry, 1 second. Michael,
no worries. I think that's a really good point, though, because, you know, like I said, you don't want to game the system, but you do want to make sure that whatever is being cited is authentic to your brand as well. It's not just about being visible there. It's about making sure that what's being written about you is also relevant for you. And brand protection is probably going to need to become important in this space too.
Yeah, it totally is. Like brand protection is more important than ever because like ChatGPT and all those ones pick up sentiment. So if someone's talking about your product in the wrong way, or I mean, you and us playing examples of this with like the Google sort of like search snippets, where it's like in the original version before like they started working on it, it would say like some customers say like, hey, it's kind of a bad experience and it may not work well, and that'll show up in the Google snippet. So again, like brand protection is really important there, because if you have a bunch of publishers with writing negative sentiments towards you, then that's going to show up in every time people search this. And I think what's really fascinating about this entire thing is just the fact that when people are asking these questions, it's when they care the most, when they're actually reading it seriously. So that's the time when they're paying attention, is hey, what's the best software for managing affiliates? If it then says hey, everyone thinks that this platform is too complex and that it's overwhelming, that's the time they're going to be taking that the most seriously, because they're really in research mode and they're asking for it. So I think the sentiment is more important than ever, because people are have already raised their hand to say I care right now, and then what they're reading is what they're going to be thinking about.
So are they creating content for AI LLMs to pick up and cite around sentiment, or are they creating content around just brand visibility? Like if somebody searches what are the best tools for affiliate tracking, or are they looking for why is this the best tool for affiliate tracking? So what is the most important part to be getting right with this?
Well, I think it's two parts to that, which is
I would say you start with when we do an audit, we start with, are you showing up? Step one.
Are you there? Number one.
Are you there? Yeah. And if that's an easy lift, it's okay, we need to get you there. And then once you're there, how can we get you favorable sentiment or priority placement in that dynamically generated response, which is complicated. But once you have citations, those are that's controllable real estate. You can
I'm going off piece here, because my next question is, okay, so what do you look at the number of searches that are happening, the phraseology of what's being typed in? How do you, what do you choose to focus on? Because Michael, you mentioned there's a tool that you guys use to have a look at key search phrases, and you want to only be seen for those key search phrases, or do you want to be seen for what are the best affiliate tracking tools?
Yeah, you want to be seen. I mean, there's going to be a billion different variations of how people are asking the question. So you really can't control sort of the width, or you're not just focusing on a couple of prompts. You're just making sure hey, no matter what the prompts are, that all of the citations are not only mentioning Everflow in it, so that therefore I show up in the prompt, but they're also talking about me well. And so this whole sentiment thing, I'd say that's for external publishers. And there's the other side, which is internal strategy of how you produce tons of content to make sure that any other long tail question has something of expertise that it can cite, which is you. So that's why I wanted to kind of break it out, is that I think for sort of general reach and also sentiment, that's external publishers and affiliates. And then there's also the mass production of content, which is just sort of making sure that more types of prompts are you showing up for. So yeah.
So there's an internal and external strategy. Your internal strategy is the content that you produce. Your external strategy is what you want your publishers to produce for you. And then cover that also. So the whole theory behind AI search is very different to what I understand SEO, and I'm not an SEO expert, but Google was more about keywords and getting certain keywords to rank, whereas this is more about phraseology. It's about sentiment. It's about mentions, and that's a very different kind of marketing almost. So do you think there's going to be a whole new trend of skill set that needs to be learned as these things evolve? So think back, and I'm showing my age here, but prior to Google, there was no Google when I started in affiliate marketing, but when Google came, it sort of changed the landscape, because now you could not have to work with partners individually. You could work with partners that were working through Google, for example. And then when Facebook and Meta launched, that was a whole other kind of infrastructure that we had to go and learn. Do you think that this is going to be a whole new infrastructure that we have to learn and then kind of compress and bring into our marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we have to even just I'll throw a couple terms out there for people to get smart on. One would be query fans.
Okay.
It's this idea that's almost like a tree, where here's the root. And so it's reminiscent of keywords. And oftentimes it's keywords are still like, even someone's run, we have these Chrome plugins that can, when you search ChatGPT, it'll pull the operators that are running, and it'll run. You'll say like, what are the best running shoes? I'm 35. I weigh this much. I do trail running. My budget's whatever. I hate the color red. Yeah. And it'll run like 7 different operators: best running shoes, best budget running shoes, whatever, like minimalist running shoes. But then it'll synthesize it. So it's still kind of keyword. Like keywords are still, I will say, helpful to think in that framework at a very fundamental level, but it doesn't capture the entire landscape. And that's where it gets messy. Like I said, the long tail has become super long because of personalization. And so that's where Michael's talking about like being everywhere. That's like it really requires more of a generalist. I think that's the calling right now, is a generalist. I mean, you need to be good at each of the things, but like you'd be good at a lot of things, basically. You need to be everywhere. You'd have a YouTube strategy, a Reddit strategy, a third-party blog strategy, first party, your own content marketing strategy needs to be dialed in. And it all needs to be nested within an overall understanding of what is this landscape? What are these query fans? How is it different in Google AI overviews, ChatGPT, Perplexity? And it's just like, it reminds me of the early days of like Ask Jeeves and Yahoo. Like I was there.
Yeah.
Things. And so it's just more complex.
Yeah.
And there's an incredible opportunity. And one YouTube video can contribute in 7 different platforms in 30 different ways. And so it's really, that's where it's like the zooming out, moving up the food chain, senior leadership getting bought in, affiliate managers kind of reimagining their role. It's like not the same thing you did every day. It's now like you got to zoom out a little bit and look around you, and not just focus on like, the CPA and the how many clicks are we driving. Like, I think it is a huge learning curve, but there's also huge opportunity. Just like the early days of Google, you can make a lot of mistakes, and you're still going to have a pretty good ROI by being early on this.
Yeah. So for publishers, for affiliates tuning into this, because we speak to both audiences, what kind of content should they double down and focus on, just for simplicity? Because you're right, Michael, you said it. Like we can get sucked into this like a rabbit hole and just get completely lost in it, or we can just make a start and slowly, incrementally start adding it. So for publishers listening, what kind of content would you recommend that they start creating in order to get themselves into these places?
Yeah, I would say like it's always good to keep in mind that I think right now we're in this gold rush period where it's still very Wild West and there's a lot of different opportunities, but it's going to go the way of SEO. It has to at some point, because you have to start adding more rules about like what is not acceptable for showing up inside of like ChatGPT, et cetera. Like that's just the nature. And that nature is like amplified by the fact we now have these LLMs to generate the content. So anyone in their basement can generate 10 billion pieces of articles. So that means that it's very quickly going to be that just having an article on everything that was AI generated with no perspective or content or authenticity is going to eventually be lowered in terms of its ability to show up here. So I'd say like that's the first thing of this publisher side, is that like if it's too easy to game the system, you can just assume that game's not going to work quick at all. But then the other side of that is that again goes back to re-emphasizing like long tail publishers, real content, like making sure that there's something about like the way we think about it is that we're generating a lot more content, but we're making sure that it's through talking with experts and getting their voices, and then using that content to then generate a content piece about what does this mean for how you can take action in your own company. So we call those masterclasses, and that sort of combines the two things, which is like the power of the generation side of it is being leveraged, but still it's like authentic perspective and voice, and it's not going to sound like anyone else just asking ChatGPT to generate it, because we're giving it a framework to work on, we're giving it a perspective to work on, and then we're saying like fill in the gap. So that's where I think this sort of goes, is like you can't just mass produce because it's too easy. And so it's sort of finding like what's that middle ground of like efficient but still really good content that has a purpose. I would recommend that for all publishers.
The content that has a purpose. I mean, I think that should be standard. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it for search, LLMs, whatever. I just want to call out to the audience because we've got quite a few people here. If you're on LinkedIn, remember to head over to YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you want to ask some questions, pop them in the chat because I will take a look in another minute or two. And we're happy to take questions. Well, I'm assuming you guys are happy to take questions, but we always do on these webinars. So if you've got some burning questions that you want to ask, please pop them forward. So let's talk about measuring the unseen. So the question that every data-driven affiliate manager or affiliate themselves is going to ask is, how can we possibly measure our program's influence on our brand's visibility within AI? Now, Michael, I'm going to come to you first because this is what you do. You do tracking. Are there any early tools or strategies that can be used to track how and where affiliate-driven content is being used in AI-generated answers? Now, I know that's a big, long question, but is there any tools that can be used?
Well, like I was saying with the prompt monitoring tools, like the first thing there is just making sure that just look up the publishers, see if they're cited, because that's another interesting report you can do on your weekly updates. That is fascinating. So I'd say that's the citation side, to sort of sell that story. From the other side, there's a few parts to this. So one, most publishers are seeing their traffic going down. That's across it. But I think that doesn't mean that performance will go down. I actually think that it's very likely we'll see performance increasing in terms of conversion rates, because a lot of people are starting with ChatGPT. They're finding out hey, this is probably one of the best solutions for say boots, but they're not going to just buy boots right away without knowing anything else about it. So then they're going to be why is this Red Wing boots good? And that's going to be when they get to the affiliate publisher, they're already halfway into buying it. So affiliate publishers can sort of close that deal to get them to go purchase it. So I think that there'll be that thing of there's still a real performance element. And there's a lot of times where ChatGPT is only going to be a stopping point in your research journey versus the final destination. So I think that helps a lot. And then with all this stuff, I just think you want to make sure you're always tracking more than just the purchase. At least capture some sort of early engagement events, hey, this publisher is sending a bunch of users who are going to this specific product page or going to the pricing page, because then you have a much better indicator of not only are they sending 40 clicks, but 30 of them have actually shown interest in eventually buying. That way you have that sort of ability to tell a little broader story of not only the purchase, but how it's driving the journey. And this all kind of fits into now AI is going to be sort of the big buzzy story you sell to leadership. You have this engagement story to sort of sell to the director. And then you still have the performance side of them being the ones that get people to purchase to hit your own goals.
Yeah. And we were actually talking about that a little bit before, where we now need to step outside of the box. So we can't measure everything on revenue share and CPA. We need to start looking at, form fill downloads, calls being booked, whatever the case is, and however you track your sales, maybe another metric that we need to be able to, commission on, and whether that's CPM, for example, how many times did you appear in an AI search? Maybe that's something that we need to be thinking about, is actually rewarding content publishers for the content that they're creating that's authentic, and finding the mechanism to bring that into the performance spec.
I would say 100%, and that's the number one challenge that I'm finding. There's with the AI visibility tools, they're very brand oriented. I think there's a lack of source-based measurement, and what I mean by that is I want to be able to put a URL in of a blog, and you tell me where it's being cited. And it's right now it's kind of working the opposite. It's what prompts do you care about, and here's some general brand share, and but it's it's very kind of imperfect, kind of finger in the air. What we really want to get down to is measuring sources and the impact of sources. Therefore, then we can build a model that maybe has some economic incentive. I think networks should be really leaning into that, of what could be, even if it's a conservative amount that they're kind of adding on, knowing that, and also knowing that some of these, I think it's super fragmented. So some of these purchasing decisions are going to be fragmented, clicking out, to websites, and those I will be converting at a much higher rate. And if we think about some of the recent announcements with Walmart and Shopify and Etsy direct integrating with OpenAI, I think we can also imagine a future where some significant portion of users are checking out in app. And so it's one click, it's like Amazon, you just has your credit card information. And so you're not maybe clicking externally as much as you used to. And so in that environment, what is the economic model for context? Because it's still, it's doing the same thing. It's just the measurement gets a little tricky. And so that's where, where everyone's kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. Is it going to be OpenAI that does that? Or is Perplexity going to introduce a model for publishers? There's Tollbit, there's Cloudflare, there's ProRata.ai, a bunch of really cool tools that are trying to basically, help publishers monetize their context. But I also think there's a gap and a place in the affiliate ecosystem for hyper relevant specific context, right? Like, we might work with a brand. They don't care about all of our content library. They care about 3 of the articles that's always been the case with affiliate. Like 3 of the articles drive 80% of the conversions. So how do we create a model around that? Even if the data is a little messy. I do think we also are waiting for some other things, like ChatGPT is hiring for a head of ad operations. Wow. I think once they have their ads platform rolled out, we're going to start to see some more data, because they're going to have to sell ad space. And when they sell ad space, it's like Google AdWords. You need to then give some sort of metrics around conversions. And, I don't know what that future looks like, but I do think that there's a huge opportunity right now to tell that story. Like, starting, like Michael said, the easiest thing to do is just monitor your prompts, monitor however you do it, manually tracking it or using Prompt Watcher or piecing together some tools to say, look, whether you're a publisher or an affiliate agency or a platform, this is how the content is providing value in these landscapes. I don't quite know the dollar number, but we can all agree it's important. I don't think anyone would say ChatGPT is like not an important marketing channel. And so
look at how many people are using it every day. I mean, it's you want to be in front of that audience in some way, shape, or form. So you better be bringing your affiliates to do it.
You can use what worked in Google, what we know about CPCs, what we know the paid ad spend is for certain queries. Yeah. We can back into a model, even a conservative estimate. If you're going to pay $2 a click or something for that turn, like maybe it's or impression, and then it's like, what's the base model that we can give publishers to give them a little bit of incentive to drive those types of returns.
So on the flip side of that, because immediately my program manager brain goes to, okay, what should I be putting into my affiliate program terms right now about all of this? Do I need to have like brand guidelines? Do I need to have, like we do with PPC, like we do with social media? What's the kind of legality of all of this? Or has that still not been ironed out yet? Like what, can publishers go and create any old content about me? Do I need to give them guidelines for what they're creating that will eventually land into LLMs? What's the kind of, I guess, what's the plan? Is there a plan? Is anybody even thinking about that yet?
Well, here we are. I think we're figuring it all out. I think we come out with disclaimers. I think there's the whole bunch of stuff there that we have to work through. But yeah, I think what I would lean on is making sure it's original content, and not so much in the sense of like, was AI used or not, but like the big thing I come back to is net information gain. And so that's been a concept that Google has had for a long time with their algorithms. But is this content moving the ball forward, or is it just regurgitating what's already out there? And at the end of the day, does it really matter how it was generated? No, but you're going to need original insights. I always come back to like, who's going to do the unboxing videos? Who's going to do that here in my kitchen video? I mean, you can do AI. AI is not going to it's going to clearly, not provide that new information. So how do we incentivize that type of behavior? So I think authentic, real, like UGC style aesthetic. I honestly think it's a bigger challenge maybe for the larger publishers. I think it's a huge opportunity for nano influencers, micro influencers, bespoke niche bloggers, YouTubers to have personality, have original pieces that they're creating, and tell that story. And if someone can corral all those sources and tell that story for them, that's, I think, the long tail. Again, the long tail. if the platforms and agencies can put their arms around that and help them tell their story, I think it could be a golden age for creators if it's done right.
Yeah, I'm loving that. And also I'm loving the fact that finally, and maybe I'm a little bit outspoken here, finally that god awful 80-20 thing that everybody bandies around is going to be a thing of the past, because I've never believed in it. I always think that for growing an affiliate program, you need to be growing an affiliate program. And that means looking at things like this, looking at different channels, looking at different partner types, and certainly looking at new tech. So on that note, if we can just wrap this webinar up, because we've still got people on here, and if anybody has questions, now's the time, because we're going to be wrapping it up shortly. Put your questions into our YouTube chat, and I will check it in a minute or two. What are the kind of like one golden nugget that you want to leave everybody that's still tuned in here at the bitter end of this webinar? What's the one nugget that you would give to affiliates or affiliate managers? Maybe you can do one of each.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, going back to sort of like the last topic, it's really important to empower your affiliates and like creators to really understand your sort of brand message and story and why it matters. And I think a good example of this is we did a case study with Unlock, which does like home equity financing. And one of the reasons they wanted to do an affiliate program in the first place was that there's all of these like major reviews about like home loans.
Yeah.
Where it would be like top 10 home loans on like Forbes and stuff like that. And they were being included there, but they were being talked about as a home loan service next to a bunch of other home loan companies, which was not actually their solution. Like they were home equity financing, where you give up some ownership of your house and you get financing from that. You're not taking on a debt loan. So it was a very different type of product. But it's a perfect example of like why messaging matters, because they built their affiliate program. They now went direct to all of these major publishers that were already reviewing them, but reviewing them wrong because they were being put in the wrong category. And when you're being put in the wrong category by a bunch of major publishers, that means that anyone who asks ChatGPT, it's going to be like, oh, Unlock, it's a home like loan product, even though that's completely wrong. So this is like one of the things with affiliate managers is like your role is even more influential now, because if you are giving the approved talking points, you're helping all of your affiliates understand exactly what your product does. That's going to be reflected in how people are discovering the brand, how people are thinking about the brand. So I think that brand guidelines have always existed, but now making sure that your affiliates really understand your product and talk about it the right way has so much more effectiveness. Like,
they don't need rules and regulations. What they need is context.
Correct.
They need context of who is the customer, what problem do we solve for that customer, not this is how you need to promote my product. You can say this, you can't say that. I think getting more contextual about how you onboard affiliates and how you get them to understand your product is really, really important now, because the content that they create spurs off the back of that. It's a great point.
And I would say from my side, it's kind of similar, but I would say just understanding this consensus shift. We've gone from a ranking based kind of like number 1, number 2, number 3 to like consensus, dynamic consensus based marketing. And I think if you can get your head around that, similar to what Michael was saying, like all the messaging and the context and all the different places, and like how are we shifting the consensus, which is hundreds of little data points, but it's like everything, again, the whole entire, index of Google, the first 10 positions in Google is now kind of like compressed into a snippet, a featured snippet, if you will, in ChatGPT. And so learning about those consensus inputs, and step 1, where are you? What is your consensus opinion, reputation right now in all these different landscapes? Where is the gap? And then what's causing that? And kind of like going down that, and then what do we need? Then how do we build a plan to either counteract or augment or double down on what's working? And so that's kind of the big thing I would leave people with. It's like understanding that. If you can understand that shift, I think a lot of other things can fall into place.
And what that means for your business again. So understanding the shift, understanding how that responds back into your strategy, and then also sending that message upwards to the leadership team who aren't as close to this as what you are. So you have to learn it. You have to build the plane and fly it and kind of like keep building it at the same time. So there's another layer to your job here as, head of affiliates or whatever your job spec is to really go and understand this stuff, be an early adopter, start testing it incrementally in your program, leverage your tech stack to help you do that. There's a really interesting question here. So before we close off, I'm going to just bring this question in. It's from Alexander. Thank you very much for your question. He said, or they say, what about the impact of YouTube video reviews content on AI visibility for a brand? Like, does the content that you put into YouTube, is that going to impact? Okay, so I'll let you answer that one, Ewan.
I mean, it's absolutely, I say it's the three-legged stool. It's Reddit, YouTube, and third-party editorial, which is a big bucket of like blogs and publishers. But YouTube, I would say, is the unsung hero of AI. And I say that for multiple reasons. One is Reddit usually gets, and I love Reddit. I'm part of me is like, I'm a bricklayer, I should sell bricks. But no, we actually sell everything. We work on across all platforms. But Reddit shows up a lot because it's also a huge network. It's a huge library. There's millions of conversations happening. Whereas YouTube, there's still an ability to kind of break through with a really well-designed, keyword-targeted video. And so I would say dollars to donuts, the best place to invest is YouTube right now. And the other reason I say that is because in both AI overviews and ChatGPT, oftentimes a video will get pulled through. The entire video gets pulled through in the Google AI overview. And so it'll be like pros and cons. And it'll be like, here's a video that explains it. So think about how powerful that is. AI has stripped out the distractions. They've stripped out the ads. They've stripped out the other 10 results. And they've just given you this little blank page. And now they're pulling in a video that's basically, this is what you should do next. And so you get people clicking off into YouTube, you get people watching the video. That video is also contributing context. AI can digest all that video and convert it and it's a very powerful tool. So I would definitely recommend YouTube as one of the top places that you should be marketing both as a publisher and as a brand, trying to get exposure for sure.
So one more question here from Alex. On media buying, if we buy a position in the listing on a site that has visibility in AI, does it still matter to AI that you are buying position 1, 2, or 3?
I think the rules are to be determined. I think one of the things getting back to your earlier discussion on the ethics, eventually what we're going to see is Google had a web spam team, Matt Cutts, and we used to live and die by what he said on Twitter. And I think OpenAI, there's a tragedy of the commons, right? There's a problem here, and they're going to have to invest in that as well. What is quality? That's why we also lean into original content and information gain. We don't want to take shortcuts because I think that's where the puck is going. But the TLDR is there's no regulation, and no, AI does not know that you paid for that. However, if they can detect a pattern at scale, and if someone does start looking into data quality, which is the whole underpinning of their large language learning model, it's going to be an issue. So I would be very hesitant to buy a placement. I think what the tricky line to navigate is kind of where it's we can create context for you. We cannot, we can review the product. We cannot guarantee a placement or give you a placement in a listicle, but we can create context that highlights the things that, we select the topic that highlights the strong part of your brand. But yeah, that I would say, yes, you can do that. So I'm sure a lot of people are doing that. But I would say that it's a gray, it's for sure, it's a gray area ethically. And
but I would look at this differently as well. I would start, because if I was managing an e-commerce brand, for example, your own content team is going to be writing about your products from a factual, compliant, regulatory, but your affiliates are going to write content from a place of context. So for example, a CRM tool will say, we do these things and we have these services and we're for these businesses. But an affiliate will come in and go, I've used this CRM tool and this is what it does do. This is what it doesn't do. And this is when you need to actually upgrade to the next level. And it will give you the context around the CRM tool in that business, in that niche, in that industry, whatever it is. You should be leveraging affiliates to be getting that level of content for you, not the content of this is my product, this is what it's about, and this is how you buy it. That's what your marketing team's doing, So really start building almost like a storyboard of where do you want affiliates to plug in and how do you want them to generate AI citations for you when people are searching at the top of the funnel. So this whole thing about, just to make it very clear for everybody that's listening, and thank you for your questions, your long tail just got a heck of a lot longer. So start thinking about how you can leverage that long tail before your competitors do, and start tracking the incrementality of it by using tools like Everflow and other tools in the marketplace. So I'm going to wrap us up there because we've been an hour and normally we're only 45 minutes, but I really loved having everybody on this webinar with us today. Thank you all for tuning in, for asking questions. How do people get hold of you other than scanning the QR code to get in touch with Everflow? But Ewan, how do people get hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is pretty unique, Ewan Finzer. The only one, I think. And you can just
That's unusual.
I post things frequently about insights and shower thoughts. And then, of course, there's our different business lines. We have Red Visible, the Reddit marketing, Scale Visible, the AI visibility. And we just launched a marketplace called CitedBy.ai, which is a context marketplace to intermediate transactions between niche long tail bloggers and brands that need context. And we're still figuring it out, but
but you're there. You're an early adopter, and that's all that needs to happen right now. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this webinar with me. Remember, if you're heading over to PI Live, get in touch with us. Michael and I will be there. You can meet Everflow, go and have a demo of their platform. It's really, really intuitive and can show you some great reports and all the cool things that it does. And they'll be on Stand 21 in London next week. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed this conversation, and I've learned so much from you guys. So thank you for coming onto the podcast and sharing your knowledge with our community. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
All right, guys, take care.
Cheers.
Bye.